Hey guys! So for today's video, I'm going to be doing a very simple makeup look. Please do not mind my hair, I really need to wash it. To start off my face, I'm going to be using the Smashbox Pore Minimizing Primer. I use this every single day. And then for foundation, I decided to try a new one. I'm using the Mary Kay Mattifying Foundation, I believe that's what it's called. I'm using the shade Beige 5 today, and I think it matched actually really well. I'm recording this about 4 hours later, and I honestly really like the way this foundation is setting on my skin. It isn't crinkling, it's not wearing away, I'm not oily at all. I actually really like it. And I'm just going to buff this out with a Morphe brush. And then for my under eyes, I'm going to be using the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer, and I'm also going to be using a slightly darker shade to cover a blemish on the side of my chin. I'm going to blend this out with the same brush I used for foundation, and I'm going to make sure that when I do blend this out under my eyes that I'm tapping back and forth and I'm not going in the same motion. This helps your concealer from settling in the cracks of your under eyes, in case you were curious about how to get rid of those. In order to set my under eye concealer, I'm going to be using the Kat Von D Shade and Light palette. I will be using the light yellow shade that I always use. And I'm just going to pat that on with a Real Techniques brush. And then I'm going to bake my under eyes. And I'm sure you're like, Lindsay, why are you baking on an everyday makeup look? I typically do this. I don't bake hardcore. I don't let it sit there for super long. I just kind of pat it on there, let it sit for a second, and then wipe it off and set the rest of my face with it. But the reason I do this is so that my concealer, one, lasts way longer, and for two, I feel like it just looks nicer. It doesn't crease as bad. It stays put. I'm never worried that it's just gonna wipe off. And so I'm just gonna lightly do that. Nothing too crazy. And then for contouring, I'm going to go back into the Shade and Light palette and use the middle contour shade. I'm using the NARS Ita brush for this. And I'm just going to contour my nose and the hollows of my cheekbones. For my cheekbones, I'm not gonna go too harsh on the contour. I'm just gonna kind of lightly stamp it and blend it out. I don't want anything too dramatic, as this is going to be a very simple everyday look. Once I have the contour all blended into my liking, I'm going to go ahead and go into the Too Faced Black Book of Bronzers. I'm using Chocolate Soleil. Honestly, I love this bronzer. For one, it smells like chocolate, and for two, it applies beautifully. I'm just going to be using a MAC brush to kind of blend that out. And then moving on to blush, I'm using NARS Madly. I've said this once, and I'll probably say this a million more times, but this blush does not get justice from the pan. It looks so boring in the pan, but I promise that as soon as you put this on your face, it just looks so beautiful, and it really pops to your skin tone. Once we have that on, we're going to go ahead and move on to the eyes. I'm using the Tartelette Palette, but honestly that's just because it was the first palette next to me that had the colors I needed. And I'm just going to go in with a blending brush and use the lightest brown shade, and I'm going to apply that into my crease a little bit above as well. I'm not going to be super precise with any of these eyeshadows today because I don't really care for this to be a super precise look. It can be messy, because in the end it looks fine. And then I'm going to go in with a slightly darker shade and use a Real Techniques brush and just apply that into my crease, and try to keep it on the outer corner as much as you can, because it is going to kind of be gradiating? I don't know how to say the word, but just kind of, an ombre looking effect. And we're just going to go in and blend that back out. As you can see, I do have a little bit of a harsh line. We're just going to blend that out with the same brush we used before. And then moving on to the inner corner. Psych, I got a little ahead of myself. Going on to the lower lash line. I'm going to be using that dark brown again and just pushing that in and then blending that out with the Real Technique brush. This brush is slightly big for your lower lash line, but it works really well because it keeps its shape but still has flexibility. Now, once that's blended out with the same transition shade that we used before, we're going to go in with our brow bone highlight and our inner corner highlight. We're using the Anastasia of Beverly Hills So Hollywood highlighter. I don't know if they still have these. If they don't, any gold or any really color you would like would work. And I'm just going to really pack this on underneath my brow, and especially in the inner corners. As you can tell from these shots, I do have eyelash extensions. No, I'm not wearing falsies. They are on my eyes. They are there every single day. So I do get to skip the top lashes, but for bottom, I'm using Loreal Voluminous Butterfly. And then we're going to set my face with Fix Plus and use that same highlighter for the tops of my cheekbones, the tip of my nose, and my cupid's bow. I'm doing this over the Fix Plus because it does make your highlight stand out, and I want to be very glowy today. Normally, I wouldn't wear any lip products except for chapstick, but for the purpose of the video, I went ahead and just put on a gloss from Benefit. Any color you want would work. And that will be all for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you very soon. Bye!